to the Widowed Parent Podcast live. It's very exciting. It's International Widows Day. Oh, Leslie, don't look so excited. But I know you've been
ready. Woo!
I know you've been up since 4 a.m. documenting 4 your day.
I've been like doing videos and fun facts about widows. There are fun facts about widows.
Yes,
I heard that. Yeah. So
so we'll give you a pass on the great big yawn there. And we're just glad that you're with us today from Baltimore. And Melissa, you're with us today from Los Angeles. And I'm joining from Seattle. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you. It's nice, not nice to be here for International Widows Day.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, I mean, International Widows Day. Right? Did you ever in a million years think that this would be a day and that it would be for us?
No, it's stupid, honestly. And when I meet people who are widowed, we always say things like, you're in a stupid club and I'm sorry, or I hate that I met you this way, or all those things. Because it's like, yeah, you say happy. It's kind of like Happy Memorial Day. Is it? Right. It just, I am happy in my life that I am healing and healed and moving forward and living the life that I think my husband would have been proud of. But I'm not happy to be celebrating being a widow. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Actually, I love that you said that because I too feel like happy is sort of my baseline.
Yeah.
So yes, I have gone through this horrible, unexpected, worst thing ever. Mm-hmm. But I somehow trusted in my widowhood that I would get back to this baseline of happy. But that being said, there is still this overriding, not sadness. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into some of this, but I do think that grief does get easier in time. But I do think it's an interesting thing to see women who are on the younger side of widowhood, like all of us are, and we're happy and life has moved forward. And that doesn't negate this tragedy that we've all experienced at all. But here we are celebrating.
Well, it's like both things can be true, right?
Yes.
I mean, it can be terrible. It can be hard. It can suck. It can be awful. And life can also be good. And you don't have to try to reconcile those things in order to make sense of it.
And I think that attempts to do that are either made by widowed people who just want it to move on and don't know what they don't know, or people outside of widowhood who are tired of you being a drag and the loser at parties and want you just to like, wah. Just stop bringing it down, man. Bring the vibe down. And They don't know how else to, because they haven't been there. They don't know how hard that is. So they just think they're doing you a favor by moving it, so.
Yeah. Well, hey, so I'm thinking there's 3 of us here. We're all authors. We probably some listeners and viewers know some of us and not all of us. So why don't we each introduce ourselves briefly and say how we got here. Leslie, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and your loss?
Okay. My name is Leslie Gray Streeter. I am a journalist, now author, single widowed mother, from and now living again in Baltimore, Maryland. My husband, Scott, who I met probably 7 miles away from here, but got together with much later, passed away in 2015. It's coming up 6 years, which means he has been gone longer than we were married, which is super dumb. And had a heart attack, died while we were making out. So at least, he was happy. And I say things like that. And non-widowed people go, oh no, did you kill him? Call Dateline. How could you be funny and levity in this? It's like, because you have to, or you'll die. You have to, or you'll die. So anyway, my son Brooks and my mom and I, who are now a family unit, are living in Baltimore. And I'm doing my best. Someone described me the other day as a widowed advocate, a widowed expert. I'm like, that's dumb. No one wants to be an expert in that. But I am, and I just, if this is the sucky thing I have to be an expert in, I'm pleased and proud to be able to maybe make someone else's path through this less dumb.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool. Thank you for going through that. And you were in Florida somewhere, right? When
In
most of
Florida,
your
outside of West Palm Beach and Lake Worth, and then we lived in Lake Worth for another, and in West Palm proper. My son and my mom and I for another 4 years before we moved in the middle of the pandemic.
aha. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And so Melissa, tell us about you.
My name is Melissa Gould. I am the author of Widowish. It just came out earlier this year. It's a best-selling book. What can I say? I'm very excited.
Yeah, and now in Germany, a bestseller of
Of
the
all
German
places.
translation, right?
Yeah, so it's #1 in Germany when it debuted last week, continues to be. It's #1 here on Amazon in a ton of categories, which is all thrilling, except for the fact that I'm writing about being a widow. So I have always been a writer. I made my living as a screenwriter. And then my husband died almost 8 years ago. I think I'm the longest one out between the three of us. Joel died of complications of multiple sclerosis and West Nile virus. So I feel like my husband died of a virus long before anybody knew about COVID and coronavirus. And so it's been a very strange and surreal thing to have a book come out in the midst of this pandemic due to a virus when I feel like I speak virus fluently. It was a strange thing. He died very unexpectedly. I refer to myself as an only parent. I would refer to all of us as only parents. I sort of bristle at single parent because I think, no, there's no weekend dad. There's no Wednesday night dinner with the dad. Like it is me, all of us. I'll say me,
Right.
but it's me 24/7.
24/7.
And my daughter is now 21. She was 13 when her father died. So I feel like I went through all those teenage years, as I know you are, Jenny. I think Leslie too. Like those teenage years are brutal. And I have a good kid, and it was still so hard. But we're on the other side of it. And I actually am happy to be in this grief space. It's a weird thing to say or a dumb thing to say, Leslie, but I'm happy to be in this grief space because I feel that there is healing in sharing our stories and bearing witness to other people's experiences. And for that, I'm just very grateful. And I never saw that coming in writing Widowish. I feel like that is what is keeping my husband close and alive. And that is such a tremendous gift.
You know, somebody commented on your Instagram in the last few days, I think maybe about the giveaway or about the live stream. Well, like what a strange world, like that there was a whole world of widows, and your response was, well, hey, this is my world now.
Right. And it's true. I think as writers and as memoirists, we find community in the areas that we know about. So being a widow, dealing with grief.
The people that I've become friends with who I've never met are like Timby Locke and Nora McInerney and, Patton Oswalt, and like people who I've never been in a room with, but I feel like they're my friends. And I feel that way about you because we've been through this thing, and like Ginny and I have like been through stuff, like, read your book and whatever. And it's like, I've never seen her in person, but I feel like I know something essential about her. And it's, what's that line from the Breakfast Club? It's pathetic and sad, but social. I feel like that's where we are.
Yep. And Leslie, by the way, how old was your son? How old is he now? And how old was he when his dad died?
Not quite 2. So that's a whole other thing. This morning, he comes downstairs to go to baseball camp, and he has my wedding album in his hands. And he says, I read this cover to read. I mean, it's like, it's pictures, but it's like, I read this last night, cover to cover, he says. And I was, first he tries to joke because he's, the child of a widowed person. So his self-deprecation and ironic humor is like way over here, way past his age. And I'm sorry for it, but it's funny. And he says, I was jealous because of all the food I never got to eat. And then he says, are you good? Like, are you okay?
Oh,
And I was like,
Uh,
oh, because nobody wants that. But he was like, it made me sad because I saw you and it was very happy, and Dad was there and I wasn't there, and now he's not here. And there was this thing that happened without me, and it was like,
hmm,
but yeah, he will be 8 in September.
gotcha. Okay. And I think all of us were in our 40s, right? When we became widowed.
Yep,
that's
44.
right.
Yep. I was 43.
I will leave it that I was in my 40s. But Jenny, tell us about Future Widow and your book and your experience.
Oh yeah. So this is my book here. And my husband Dennis died. Well, he got sick in 2015.
Mm.
So right now, 6 years ago, right now, it's June. Yeah, May. Rather strange. Like 6 years ago, right now, my world was the hospital and the surgery and the ER 5 times in 1 week, and one crisis after the next, which turned out to be glioblastoma, which is brain cancer, which is a very aggressive form of brain cancer. Um, at the time, I'd never heard of it at all. Now, since then, John McCain died of it and Beau Biden died of it. And actually, Beau Biden died of it right when my husband was being diagnosed. So I was
Oh,
following that story. Yeah. And so that was kind of surreal. Um, but yeah, I had a Caring Bridge journal for the whole time my husband was sick. And what started out as I can kind of update people, friends, family. And it started out as like, this happened, he had surgery, he's eating, maybe he'll come home. Ended up becoming more and more reflective and sharing our experience, our journey. And I decided to turn that into a book and go back and add the layers that weren't there at the time, the stuff, with the benefit of a few years out and the benefit of all the grief experts that I've talked to for my show and what I've learned about children's grief that I wish I had known back then. Going back and adding some of that stuff in, if I had known better, I would have done this, I would have done that, I wish I'd done this. So yeah, and speaking of my show, both of you have been guests on it, so thank you for that. And those were terrific discussions. I always like talking to other memoirists and grief writers and hear your journeys and your perspectives and what you can share with all
Jenny,
of
yours
us.
was my first podcast I did. I was
Yes.
so nervous. I was, oh my God, like I was just a mess, but
No, that was great. And
it was
we
a great
recorded.
conversation.
Yeah, we recorded it a long time before your book came out, and I sat on it until your book
Yeah,
launched.
I
So
think it
that
was
worked out great.
like 4 months before the book came out, maybe
Something
something like
like that. Yeah.
Well, it was so funny when you asked me if I would like read your book and write you a blurb or whatever. And I was like, because you always think, I don't want to mess this up for this person. What if I say something horrible? What if I say something like, because obviously these are marketing things. They're also heartfelt. And you want people that you really think get the book. You don't just ask someone who you think kind of sort of likes it.
Yeah.
And I was so moved by what I read of it. It was just like, I hope I don't say something because I'm a writer. I've been a writer, professionally for 1,000 years now. But this meant so, not that my job doesn't mean something, but this meant so much to me
Well, thank you.
because I know what it is. I know
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing it. And what you wrote was awesome. I actually use it all the time in little snippets of things because it speaks to exactly, you're a widowed person and you're a widowed parent, right? And so that shared experience, I think, is a really important perspective. And so what you have to say about it is terrific. So thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Okay, well, let's talk a little more about writing a book. I think we've covered some of this, but I'm kind of curious, what did you guys either like or not like, or what surprised you about writing a memoir?
I will say that I've been practicing for writing a memoir my whole life. I've been a columnist for a very long time. And at first I was, dumb 27-year-old movie reviewer going, things are fun. I was literally like twirling through the newsroom and everybody thought I was like weird, but it was hilarious and it was young and fun and whatever. And I wrote about some other stuff too, but my first real serious, like, this is a thing, full stop, sad that happened to me was when my father died in 2012. I did not know that this was practice for the rest of my life. but I wrote this column that first like, oh, it was great and we'll miss him. And my editor gave it back and said, it feels like you're trying to avoid writing about him. And I go, yeah, I really am. Write about his death and screw you. No. So I went back, cursing under my breath, and I just wrote. No stops, no edits. I went here. And he went, that's it. So when Scott died 3 years later, I already had a weird, stupid grief template to follow. And I knew that when I wrote my book, that I was going to have to not hold anything back other than like personal things of other people or whatever. Because it's like, you know, when you read books, and we've all read books where you can tell, particularly if it's a celebrity, they're holding things back. And you go, why wasn't the famous, you know, dumping ice cream on someone's head story in this, you know, whatever it is, you know, and you go, they're holding something back. And I thought it wasn't going to serve me or Scott or anybody if I lied about stuff, or once again, if it was like specific details. But what surprised me the most was how hard it was not to be because I thought I was like, oh no, everybody's alive and they're gonna be mad at me and they're gonna go on Oprah. Not that Oprah would care, but whatever, you know. And I was like, the ability to be candid and not feel yoked by it was really surprising to me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Melissa, how about you?
Well, something similar kind of happened with me because as a screenwriter, I always wrote fiction, which is not what people consider screenwriting to be, but it is. These are made up people and made up worlds that we have created for them. And so I was, shortly after Joel died, I was in a writing group and I was working on a novel, and a friend in the group suggested that I start writing about what was going on for me personally. And I didn't even know what that meant because I had never written from that place. I had never thought I had a story to tell that was about me or based in anything that I had been experiencing. But it's kind of like what you were saying, Leslie, like the thing you weren't writing about was the thing you probably should have been writing about. And that's how it struck me. And I had an interesting reaction to that, which is all in my book, Widowish. I write about it. But then so I went back to writing group the next week. I put my novel aside and I started writing about losing my husband, about being the town widow, about being an only parent, about the things people said to me and the things I experienced. And once I started writing about those things, I couldn't stop. And yeah, and then I had a column at the Huffington Post and I just kept populating that every week. And then I started pitching other outlets. And then once I had an essay, you know, I had been published in a lot of great places. And then once I had my essays, one of them was published in the New York Times. I was kind of like, well, where do I go from here? Like, I've been writing these essays, like, well, maybe I will write a memoir. Like, it just kind of had this natural progression that I wasn't even necessarily pursuing, but it's just kind of gave me focus and a place to put all of my feelings. And what's funny to me, and I don't know if this was for either one of you when you were writing your memoir, I have a lot of friends who are writers, and some of them are nonfiction, a lot of them write fiction. But regardless, they always have like their workspace is like covered with like Post-it notes and notebooks and I just like opened my laptop, started type. Like I was just writing my experience, and it was so personal and it was so embedded in just my DNA of having this experience of loss that I just wrote, and it really flowed very easily. Another friend of mine calls it the divine download because that's what it felt like. I just was writing and writing, and I really didn't care. That's not the right word. It's not that I didn't care. I didn't take other people into consideration. I also didn't feel that I would be offending anybody or I wasn't saying anything. But yeah, this was a very personal story I was telling. Joel's family was involved, my family to a lesser degree in a way, but certainly our daughter. So in writing the scenes with my daughter, I was the most careful, but I was always honest. And I would always default to facts of that scene or facts of that moment that I was writing about. And I just felt like it was the most healing thing I could have done was write Widowish. And that's why I love like talking about it. And I love sharing my story again, because I think these things, it helps with the healing
Mm,
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
for
yeah.
me.
Did you guys feel super exposed? 'Cause I felt super exposed.
I did, but like I said, it's weird because I felt like literally within a like county and a half in Florida, in South Florida, I was well known. So I felt like my day to day walking into the grocery store and having people, tackle me in Publix and go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," So I felt like I was prepared for that. I felt exposed once it occurred to me the people who had never read my column or didn't go to high school with me or Scott or college with him or whatever, or go to church with me growing up in Baltimore, knew my stories and who didn't know my relationship with sex or like the drinking parts or the racial parts or whatever. And I thought I have to explain myself. And I thought, no, I don't. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. And not I think that as women, we take on a lot of um introspection that men don't take on. They just go, "I'm gonna tell my story, balls and all, baby." And we're like, "But what about whatever?" And I think the exposure felt good because I remember once I released the final edit of his, it's like 80,000 million edits. And once I released the final one and went, I can't do anything else about it. I can't change it in any way. And it's out there. It's like when you send a MailChimp uh, newsletter and it says it's out there, and you go, yes, it is. It's out there. And I felt like once it was out there, it felt like this beautiful exposed thing was like, well, you know what? If y'all are offended, I can't do anything about it.
Huh. Yeah, that's funny. I felt super vulnerable and exposed. And I actually, kind of at the 11th hour, I was like, okay, so obviously I knew a memoir would be, it's by definition kind of an exposing genre, right? And even though I knew that, I didn't really feel that until it got closer to the end, right? And then I was freaking out. And I
I
had to
remember that.
I had to go and like download Brene Brown on the one on her book on vulnerability. I think it's I forget which one it is. I downloaded the audiobook and I spent like the whole afternoon until I got to listen to the whole book all the way straight through. Because I had just really had to I'm like, if I don't get comfortable with vulnerability, I might pull the plug on this whole thing.
I just remember your launch day changed or something like that, or there was something. Does that timeline? I mean, it doesn't really matter.
That was,
I know.
yeah, that it did. It was originally going to go out in the fall, and then it went in January, and it turned out it launch day was the day before the insurrection in Washington D.C.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a problem, but
just a little, yeah.
The way these things go. Yeah. You know what? I have no idea how long we've been talking for. And seriously, we could keep talking for like
about
3 more hours.
Minutes.
28 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody's going to listen if we talk for 3 more hours. So we probably should wrap it up soon here. I would really love to know if you guys see, okay, you guys know this. I like to ask at the end of my show with every guest, if you could say one thing to widowed parents, what would you say to them? So I'll pitch that question to each of us here. So who wants to go first with that one? Okay.
I will say, and I'm not going to curse on your show, but I will say you're probably not screwing it up. Probably. Because I think that because we're now with Melissa, I love that we're the only parent, even though my mother is my co-parent, the buck stopped with me. Ultimately where he goes to school, where we live, what he did for sports, whatever, all therapy, all of that's on me. And all of these decisions are you. And there's this thing, once again, that happens that dumps all the responsibility on mothers, I think, even if there is another parent around. And I think that we absorb so much of the possible pitfalls and things to go wrong. Why don't we get to absorb the good stuff? Why don't we get to say, yeah, he looks really great today and I bought that outfit and dang nabbit, that's on me. Or, he is well adjusted and he calls everybody Miss So-and-so and all the parents in the neighborhood like him because he's not a little jerk. And that's on me. I did that because his father he died when he was 2. So whatever imprinted, it's me. And I get to take credit for that. So I'd say take credit for the fact that hopefully your kid's not in jail or selling pencils on the street because you did that. You got all of you through, and that is something to be proud of, and you can go ahead and do that.
Yes, I'm
All
doing
right.
that too for you.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I love that. Okay, Melissa.
I would just say, I think that grief is such a personal thing. And I think there can be a lot of comparison going on. And by that, I mean, if you meet other widows in different timelines, and it's like some people have a really hard time for a really long time. And some people seem to bounce back very quickly. And I guess my advice would just be that there is no right or wrong way to grieve, and that you are doing the best that you can. And it's a lot. And whether the loss was expected or unexpected, it sends you into a tailspin that takes a minute to find your footing again. And I just want to remind people that just to be kind with yourselves, you're doing the best you can. When it comes to grief and grieving, there is no right or wrong.
Yeah, so true. So true. Okay, cool. Thank you.
What about you?
Well, okay, so I ask this question. I ask people to give one thing, and then I'm like, let me give 5 things, but I won't do that. What I'm going to go with is, I think probably the most frequently heard answer on my show is that you are not alone. And one of the reasons I picked that is because today's International Widows Day, and we're not alone. There's a lot of us, and you know what? With the pandemic now in the US, there's 40,000 more kids who have a dead parent. So that's, I'm not sure how many widows that is, but that's a lot of new widows just from the pandemic, plus all the people who are widowed with the cancers and the car accidents and the suicides and the other medical problems and everything else, right? So I think, I hear from listeners a lot that people really feel alone. They probably don't know anybody in their social circle, in their kids' school, in their neighborhood who's 30 something or 40 something and widowed with kids and teens. And the thing is, there's a lot of us, and it's really helpful to connect. If you can do it in person, if you can find those people in your town, or if you do it online, if you find, there's a ton of widowed people on Instagram interacting all the time. There's Facebook groups, and there's also the book route, which I hear too, that reading people's memoirs, people's widow memoirs, helps people feel less alone. My story isn't just like Leslie's and isn't just like Melissa's, and yet there's certain commonalities in being a younger widowed person with kids and reading the different kind of flavors of how people's stories go. Helps people feel less alone too. So that's, yeah. And so along those lines, I happen to have all 3 books right here.
Yay.
Spread these out. I don't think I have a big enough screen to. There.
Here, I'll hold mine. Leslie, you hold yours.
There we go.
Leslie, who's been up since 4 a.m.
Yes,
What's
right.
happening with the
So,
book?
yeah. So here's the thing, guys. We are doing a giveaway, the ultimate memoir giveaway for International Widows Day. And we have signed copies of Widowish, Black Widow, and Future Widow to give away to one lucky winner, a signed copy of each of these books. So there are still a few hours left to enter. The URL is jennylisk.com/giveaway. So JENNYLISK.com/giveaway. And I'll throw that in the comments here too, as soon as we're done. 11 p.m. tonight Pacific time is when the giveaway closes. So I encourage you to enter, and you can get extra entries if you do stuff like follow us on Instagram, and there's a bunch of ways to do that. So anyway, so great talking with all you guys today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for teaming up on this giveaway. So excited to see who wins and send them each of our books. Fantastic.
Jenny, thank you so much for putting all this together. And Leslie, I'm such a fan.
And I'm a fan of yours too. This could not have gone more perfectly, because it's just like people, once again, who've never been in the same physical place with each other, who just have such a rapport.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to tour together.
Yeah. Ooh, that'd be fun. That'd be trouble.
It would be.
I don't know. All of us are going to have to be in Baltimore or Los Angeles or Seattle, get together for a I don't know,
It
Or we
can
can
awesome
meet in
time.
the middle. We can
In the
meet.
middle. What's in the
Yeah.
middle? Yeah, like Nebraska or something.
Yeah, Kansas. I'm not sure.
We'll have to get out the map and check that.
Fun. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. All right, guys, don't forget jennylisk.com/giveaway so you can get a chance to win all 3 of our books. And happy International Widows Day. Thanks, guys.